Section 2. Summarized and read by Uday C. Santakumar. An Introduction to Agile. This section includes the Agile Manifesto mindset, values, and principles. It also covers the concepts of definable and high uncertainty work, and the correlation between lean, the Kanban method, and Agile approaches. Along with that, we're going to learn more about uncertainty, risk, and lifecycle selection with the help of Stacey complexity model. Definable work versus high uncertainty work. Project work ranges from definable work to high uncertainty work. Definable work projects are characterized by clear procedures that have proved successful on similar projects in the past. The production of a car, electrical appliance, or home after the design is complete are examples of definable work. The production domain and processes involved are usually well understood, and there are typically low levels of execution uncertainty and risk. New design, problem solving, and not done before work is exploratory. It requires subject matter experts to collaborate and solve problems to create a solution. Examples of people encountering high uncertainty work include software system engineers, product designers, doctors, teachers, lawyers, and many problem-solving engineers. As more definable work is automated, project teams are undertaking more high uncertainty work projects that require the technique described in this practice guide. High uncertainty projects have high rate of change, complexity, and risk. These characteristics can present problems for traditional predictive approaches that aim to determine the bulk of requirements upfront and control changes through a change request process. Instead, agile approaches were created to explore feasibility in short cycles and quickly adapt based on evaluation and feedback. Before continuing with section 2, let us discuss on what to call non-agile approaches. There is no single term that is universally used to describe non-agile approaches. Initially, the practice guide used the term plan-driven to describe the emphasis on the upfront plan and then execution of that plan. Some people prefer the term waterfall or serial to describe this cycle. In the end, we settled the term predictive since it is used in a guide to project management body of knowledge and the software extension to the PMBOK guide. Many organizations do not experience either of these extremes and instead occupy some middle ground. That is natural, but we still need a way to talk about both ends of the spectrum. If agile is at one end, we call the other end predictive. The Manifesto and mindset. Thought leaders in the software industry formalized the agile movement in 2001 with the publication of Manifesto for Agile Software Development. We are uncovering better ways to developing software by doing it and helping others to do it. Through this work, we have come to value individual and interactions over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while there is a value in items on the right, we value the items on the left more. Although originating in the software industry, these principles have since spread to many other industries. This embodiment of mindset, values, and principles defines what constitute an agile approach. The various agile approaches in use today shares common roots with agile mindset, value, and principles. This relationship is shown in figure 2.3 on page number 10. As shown in the figure 2-3, the model inspired by Ahmed Sidki articulates agile as a mindset defined by the Agile Manifesto value, guided by the Agile Manifesto principles, and enabled by various practices. It is worth noting that while the term agile becomes popularized after the manifesto, the approaches and techniques used by project team today existed before the Agile Manifesto by many years and in some cases decades. 12 clarifying principles flowed from these values as shown on the previous slide. Our highest priority is to satisfy customers through early continuous delivery of valuable software or product. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Agile processes harness change for customers' competitive advantage. Deliver working product or software frequently, from a couple of weeks to a couple of months, with a preference to the shorter time scale. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. Build projects around motivated individuals. give them the environment and the support they need, and trust them to get the job done. The most efficient and effective method of conveying information to and within a development team is face-to-face conversation. Working product or software is a primary measure of progress. Agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsors, developers, and the users should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhances agility. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. The best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. At regular intervals, the team reflects on how to become more effective, then tunes and adjusts its behavior accordingly. In general, there are two strategies to fulfill Agile values and principles. The first is to adopt a formal Agile approach, intentionally designed and proven to achieve desired results. Then take time to learn and understand the Agile approaches before changing or tailoring them. Premature and haphazard tailoring can minimize the effect of the approach and thus limit benefits. The second strategy is to implement changes to the project practices in a manner that fits the project context to achieve progress on a core value or principle. Use time boxes to create features or specific techniques to iteratively refine features. Consider dividing up one large project into several releases if that works for the specific project context. Implement changes that will help the project succeed. The change do not need to be part of the organization's formal practices. The end goal is not to be agile for its own sake, but rather to deliver a continuous flow of value to customers and achieve better business outcomes. Before we move forward with section 2, let's take a look at Appendix X2, Attributes that Influence Tailoring. Introduction. This appendix provides high-level guidance on when and how to tailor agile approaches. It can be used to determine circumstances that might warrant changing or introducing new technique, and then offer some recommendations to consider. Shu-Ha-Ri model. The Shu-Ha-Ri model of skills acquisition describes progression from obeying the rules. Shu means to obey and protect, through consciously moving away from the rules. Ha means to change or digress. And finally, through steady practice and improvement, finding an individual path. Ri means to separate or leave. We need to start and practice at the Shu level before we are ready to move to the Ha level to tailor the process, or the Ri level to invent a new custom process. First comes caution, considerations before tailoring. Tailoring is an advanced topic that should be undertaken by experienced practitioners who have been successful using agile approaches as originally described in the multiple environments before they consider tailoring them. In other words, gain experience and be successful with one approach before attempting to tailor the approach. A common response when struggling to adopt an agile practice is to consider whether to do it or not. A statement like, "Retrospectives were unpopular, so we decided to drop them," illustrates this issue and indicates a more fundamental problem on the team that is unlikely to be addressed by tailoring the method. The situation will be made worse by omitting the retrospective activity that aims to improve the process. Finally, tailoring should be undertaken in collaboration with teammates or whoever the change is likely to impact. People need to be engaged in thinking and decision-making process about changing processes in order for them to commit and buy into the changes in order to have a successful transition. Omitting people from tailoring a process is likely to result in resistance and resentment to the change, even if it makes good sense technically. Often experienced coaches or leaders can help to engage people effectively. How to use this appendix? Or let's discuss the 4 steps of tailoring. To benefit from the guidance listed in this appendix, which will be discussed in a separate video, we recommend first successfully using the agile approaches as designed. Then review the tailoring guidelines that match the situation and read the associated recommendation. Next, discuss the change with the people it will impact and agree on a course of action. As it will be discussed in section 5, a good way to evaluate a change is to try it for an iteration or 2 first, before adopting it permanently, or consider a flow-based approach to try to deliver several features. Then reflect with retrospective and reassess. When people know they can experiment and provide feedback on the experiment, they are more likely to try something new. Having tried it for a time-boxed period, the team should review its effectiveness at a retrospective to determine whether it should be continued as is, modified to improve it, or dropped from use. Finally, successfully adopted tailored approach can be institutionalized into the standard processes used for projects that share these characteristics. It is also recommended that guidelines from Section 5 be followed that describes adopting or tailoring new approaches. Tailoring recommendations. Listed below are some good practices to consider before tailoring an approach. Beware of taking things away. Many of the agile practices act as a self-supporting pair. For instance, co-location and frequent business conversation allow for a lightweight requirements since gaps in understanding can be filled quickly. Likewise, experiences ruthless testing allows for courageous refactoring as one practice support the other. Removing something without understanding or addressing its counterbalanced practice will likely create more problems than it solves. Agile approaches and agile methods are umbrella terms that cover a variety of frameworks and methods. Referring to figure 2-4, agile is placed in context and visualizes it as a blanket term, referring to any kind of approach, technique, framework, method, or practice that fulfills the value and principles of Agile Manifesto. Figure 2-4 also shows Agile and the Kanban method as subsets of Lean. This is because they are named instances of Lean thinking that share Lean concepts such as focus on value, small batch sizes, and elimination of waste. Is Agile an approach, a method, a practice, a technique, or a framework? Any or all of these terms could apply depending on the situation. This practice guide uses the term approach unless one of the other term is obviously more correct. One way to think about the relationship between Lean, Agile, and the Kanban method is to consider Agile and the Kanban method as descendants of Lean thinking. In other words, Lean thinking is a superset sharing attributes with Agile and Kanban. This shared heritage is very similar and focuses on delivering value, respect for people, minimizing waste, being transparent, adapting to change, and continuously improving. Project teams sometimes find it useful to blend various methods. Whatever works for the organization or team is what should be done regardless of its origin. The objective is the best outcome regardless of the approach used. The Kanban method is inspired by original lean manufacturing system and used specifically for the knowledge work. It emerged in the mid-2000s as an alternative to the agile method that were prevalent at that time. The Kanban method is less prescriptive than some agile approaches and less disruptive. As it is original, start where you are approach, project team can begin applying the Kanban method with relative ease and progress towards other agile approaches if that is what they deem necessary or appropriate. For more details on Kanban method, see Annexure 3, an overview of Agile and Lean framework, which will be part of another video. There is and probably always will be a lot of discussion around Kanban method, whether it belongs to the Lean or Agile movement. It was conceived in and around Lean manufacturing, but is widely used in Agile settings. Uncertainty, risk, and lifecycle selection. Some projects have considerable uncertainty around project requirements and how to fulfill those requirements using current knowledge and technology. These uncertainties can contribute to high rate of change and project complexity. These characteristics are illustrated in the next slide. As project uncertainty increases, so too does the risk of rework and the need to use different approaches. To mitigate the impact of these risks, teams select life cycles that allow them to tackle projects with high amount of uncertainty via small increments of work. Teams can verify their work when they use small increments and can change what they do next. When teams deliver small increments, they are better able to understand the true customer requirements faster and more accurately than with static written specification. Following the Stacey complexity model, based on technical and requirements uncertainties, project move from simple to chaos, with chaos being high risk, simple being predictable. With simple projects, linear approaches work well. With complicated and complex projects, adaptive approaches work well. With chaos, it is fundamentally risky. Teams can plan and manage projects with clear and stable requirement and clear technical challenges with little difficulty. However, as the uncertainty in the project increases, the likelihood of changes, wasted work, and rework also increases, which is costly and time consuming. Some teams have evolved project life cycles to use iterative and incremental approach. Many teams discover that when they explore the requirement iteratively and deliver more often incrementally, the team adapts to change much easily. This iterative and incremental approach reduces waste, rework, because the team gains feedback. These approaches use very short feedback loops, frequent adaptation to process, reprioritization, regularly updated plans, and frequent deliveries. These iterative, incremental, and agile approaches work well for projects that involve new or novel tools, techniques, materials, or application domain. They also work well for projects that require research and development, have high rate of change, have unclear or unknown requirements, uncertainties, or risk, or have a final goal that is hard to describe. By building a small increment and then testing and reviewing it, the team can explore uncertainty at a low cost in a short time, reduce risk, and maximize business value delivery. This uncertainty may be centered on suitability and requirements. Is the right product being built? Technical feasibility and performance. Can this product be built this way? Or process and people. Is this an effective way for the team to work? All three of these characteristics, product specification, production capability, and process suitability, typically have elements of high uncertainty. However, iterative and incremental approaches have their limits of applicability. When both technology uncertainty and requirements uncertainty are very high, the project moves beyond complex to chaotic. In order for the project to become reliably possible, it needs one of the uncertainty variable to be contained, and thus completing section 2.